Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Dhruva. I'm one of the co-founders of Lumiere, and I'm so excited to see you all here today. I think I've had the pleasure of speaking to many, but not all of you. For quick background on my end, I grew up in India, came here for undergraduate bachelor's degree in economics at Harvard. Initially thought I was going to become a professional nerd, so went straight into graduate school, did a master's and a PhD in international development at Oxford, but along the way, realized that helping young people discover research is way more fun than doing it myself. So I co-founded Lumiere 5 years ago now. And over the last 5 years, we've had the pleasure of working with so many of you and your amazing, amazing students. And today we're so excited to present Daniel Greenberg, who is the founder and CEO of Collegeease, a software company focused on streamlining the college application process for IECs and their students. Daniel comes to us with decades of experience in high-tech software development, in kind of the finance function, and has held senior executive roles at a number of different companies. He earned a BA in economics from Oberlin and graduated with honors from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. And we're really looking forward to learning more about your platform, Daniel. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Shiva. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be covering how to streamline your college consulting and how to increase student acceptances and spend 40% less time on IEC Busywork. So let's be honest, no one ever said I became an IEC because I love chasing down essay prompts, copying deadlines into spreadsheets, reminding students 14 times to check their email. If you've ever thought there's got to be a better way to do this, you're in the right place, and we'll cover that today. So we're going to talk about how top IECs are serving significantly more students without having to clone themselves. You'll see a modern way to recommend best fit schools, instantly organize every student's essays, keep students productive between sessions, and even automatically remind them of deadlines so you don't have to act like that nagging parent that your parents often outsource to you. So by the end of the session, you'll know how to increase your students' acceptance rates and free up more time to add more students or free up your evenings, whichever is more important to you. So let's start with a quick overview of what we'll cover. So first, we'll start on ways to reclaim your time. Then we'll focus on ways to improve or increase your students' acceptance rates and outcomes. We'll also cover ways to ensure that your student can make progress between their sessions and how to grow your counseling business. My background, as Dhruva said, is in high-tech software development. I founded Collegeease 3 years ago to address huge inefficiencies within college consulting industry. And I've worked with over 1,000 students, families, and IECs on the admissions process and development of this service. So here's what we learned in that process. We learned that IECs love interacting with students and helping them find their best fit colleges. They love working with the student to craft their narrative and to have a tangible impact on the students' lives. What they don't love so much on average is spending time collecting a lot of data, whether that's college requirements data, due dates, essay prompts. They don't like the manipulation of spreadsheets and hunting down the latest versions of essays from different students, keeping track of all the application details for every student, for every college, hounding students to complete tasks, managing anxious and sometimes overbearing parents, and having to then track down which schools they were actually admitted to after the fact. Students also have some challenges beyond the obvious ones. We heard from students that the application process is very overwhelming, which is one of the many reasons why they hire you. But they also want to be able to see the big picture and know where they are in the process. So that's something that we've heard from a lot of students, that even working with an IEC, they kind of lack that visual bird's eye view, if you will. Also, they need assistance between sessions when meeting with their college counselor and college consultant. And they generally want more support than what is financially viable for an IEC to provide between sessions. As you know, you only have so many hours in a day, and the more hours you apportion to any given student, the less students that you can support. So with these needs in mind, both from the IEC, the parents, and the students, we designed and built Collegeease. And we'll go over what Collegeease does, and more importantly, we'll go over each of those beginning items, starting with how to reclaim your time. So one way to reclaim time is by outsourcing all of the collection of the college requirements and due dates. The software system Collegeease automatically collects that. So as you add colleges to the list, that data is automatically populated. The college essay data, the college essay prompts are also automatically collected. So as you add colleges to your list, the college essay prompts get added and they're automatically categorized so you can quickly see which essays that the student can reuse across schools. Everything is housed in a Google Doc so that you can share it and have access to it outside of Collegeease. And every Google Doc also, in addition to the essay prompt, will have a link explaining to that student how to write that type of essay. So the focus is to try to simplify that whole process. We also save you time by tracking the student's progress in real time automatically. So whether you're jumping online 5 minutes before you're about to meet with a student, you can see exactly where they are in the college application process, what percentage of the way done they are, what they completed between your sessions, and what they might have skipped in terms of major tasks. You can even see the last task that they completed in the system. And alerts are automated. So you don't any longer have to stay on top of every single detail for the student. The student is told through text and email in advance when they need to start working on different items to save you time so that you can focus on the high quality time when you're engaging with your students. So we covered reclaiming time. Let's talk about some ways of increasing a student's acceptance chances and their outcomes with schools. So as we all know, when you find schools that are a great fit for the student, there's a higher probability that they'll be accepted. If you're familiar with the Coursava card sort exercise, this is akin to that, but it's more sophisticated using a variant of conjoint analysis. What we do is we have a survey that educates the student about all of the different factors grouped into location, academics, campus environment, student life rather, and college costs. And each of the items underneath those sections, they can simply mouse over an information bubble to learn more about those items and indicate if they have a preference. They can leave the default of I don't care, or they can indicate if a college must have it or must not have it. Unlike something like a Coursava, at the end, it will actually recommend colleges that are the best fit. So it combines the helping the student understand all the different factors that may be important to them with the actual recommendations of the schools that are the right fit for them. And this is it can be an interactive process where you can help guide the student if you feel that there are some factors that they may be overlooking that once they become more educated, they'll realize are important factors in the process. Parents can also be involved and they can weigh in. So it can be a very interactive experience. So finding best fit colleges is one way to improve a student's chance of acceptance. But as you know, also finding and achieving distinction in extracurriculars and choosing majors that are perhaps less popular can be other ways that a student can improve their chances. So we use AI in the system to interactively ask the student questions and home in on their strengths and passions, and then make recommendations. So for instance, for majors, we'll recommend common majors, but we'll also recommend less competitive majors that are offered at most schools, and we'll also suggest less common majors found at some schools. What this does is it addresses the need on the part of the admissions officer to bring on board a balanced class with diversity in terms of academic aspirations. And as you know, the colleges hire professors in all the different departments, and they want to fill all the classes, not just the popular classes. The system will also recommend extracurricular activities. In addition to the standard ones that you'd expect at any given high school, it will take that information about the student's passions and interests and recommend activities where the student can achieve distinction, where they can be pointy and stand out from the crowd. Another way that the system will help the student improve their odds of admission is by walking them through the essay writing process. For any one of us, you might find that it's quite difficult to see yourself objectively and even write a personal statement at our age with all of our life experience. As you know, it's damn near impossible for a 17-year-old to have that kind of self-reflection. It's a daunting process to write that personal statement. What we do is we break it down into bit by bit, easy to complete sections based on best practices of personal statement, essay writing. And everything is housed in a single Google Doc. These are all the same Google Doc that you as the consultant can review as a student progresses through this process. In addition to writing unforgettable essays, we know that a student can have great essays, perfect test scores, great grades, and they don't get accepted to school because they forget to submit one thing. Maybe it's the transcript. They forgot, they added the school at the last minute and they forgot to contact their high school to deliver their transcripts, or they haven't gotten their letters of recommendation in. So we make sure that nothing slips between the cracks so that all the items are turned in on time. So the other thing that we heard from IEC is it's quite frustrating that the sessions with the students are wonderful, but then some students don't make great progress between sessions. So Collegeease is designed to make sure that they keep the ball moving and they make great progress. How do we do that? When the student first onboards in the system, it asks them a series of questions, like their graduation year, the extracurriculars that they're involved in, whether they expect to pursue extracurriculars in college, whether they anticipate taking the SAT, ACT, whether they're an IEP. And based on a collection of these questions, we build a custom roadmap for each student with custom tasks behind that roadmap so that they get that bird's eye view and clarity as to what stands ahead of them and where they are in the process. They can quickly see for these different groupings what they've completed and what needs to be done. If they're not sure on what to do next between sessions, they simply click the to-do area and they see the one task that they're supposed to work on next. When they click on the task, there's a helpful video explaining exactly what to do. And so they're never at a loss of what to do and how to do it. And should they have any questions at all, there's an ever-present help field where they can just simply type in their question and get the answers to their questions. Finally, we'll conclude with how to grow your counseling business. Within the system, you can easily, this is a screenshot of the shared user area. You can click here to add users. You can add, if you're part of a multi-person practice, you can add your fellow consultants, and you can add your students very simply. When you add a student, you get a counselor dashboard where you get to see all of their information and you can keep notes on what to follow up on. So either at the end of the session, you write some notes as to what you've asked the student do and what to focus on, or coming up right before your session, you can capture notes as to what to focus on during that session based on your review of their progress. And the service is designed to be very, very affordable to free you to add more students if that's your objective in your business. So the idea is to give you as an IEC leverage so that you can take on more students without taking on more burden, and by being able to focus on what you presumably love to do in your business. So there are three options. It's a subscription-based business, and you can choose to either have the parents purchase it directly. In that model, it's completely free to you, no cost, and you get 100% full access to that entire student's experience and environment. Or you can bill parents for that retail price, and we'll provide you with a discount code for the profit, for the discount, and you keep that profit. Or you could simply choose to bundle it with your service and not, call out the added functionality. This is the normal pricing that we see retail. So it's $29 a month that the parents would see. And as an IEC and a Lumiere member, you get a 50% off with our discount code. And as I mentioned, with that 50% off, you can either keep the difference and bill the parents for the full amount, or you can bundle it with your service. So what we've seen today are ways to reclaim your time and basically outsource the busy work of being an IEC so that you can focus on all that is fulfilling and enjoyable and working with students. We've shown you ways that the system is constantly looking for opportunities to improve the acceptance rate of your students, which presumably is the reason why parents have hired you to begin with. We've shown you how students can make progress between their sessions. And we've shown ways that you can essentially grow your business by outsourcing the time-consuming bits and being able to take on more students. So in conclusion, I mentioned there's a discount code. So if you'd like, you can go to collegeease.com, and under pricing, you can enter in the discount code of LUM50, or you can simply try it for free. It's free for consultants to try and use. When you sign up, we'll give you a demo student account. So it simulates a real student, and you can see what that experience is like. At this point, I'd like to turn over the tables here to Dhruva to see if we have any questions outstanding.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for walking us through the platform. There's two questions from counselors in the chat, but before we dive into that, I wanted to ask you a question about kind of how this came about. I think this presentation did such a great job of explaining the technical aspects of the platform, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about the story behind it. How did you end up starting it, and kind of what have the last couple of years looked like for you?
Okay, great questions. Well, the origins of the business were very personal. I had two of my sons go through the college application process. Part of that process was evaluating IECs, and we selected what we believed to be were some of the top IECs in the business to work with our kids. And as we kind of stepped back from the process and observed, we realized that there was a tremendous amount of data collection and, dare I say, kind of drudgery and busy work that needed to be done, but the consultants weren't really happy doing it, and that's not why they got into the business. And so the deliverables were kind of both suboptimal from a usability perspective for the student and parents, but also it was something that was kind of painful for the IECs. You know, we get spreadsheets, and information was kind of all over the place. And as soon as you add a college, things need to be updated, and it created a lot of work for all parties. And so when we finished the process with our two kids, we then amassed a team and went around and spoke to a bunch of IECs as to why they got into the business and what the pain points were. And we did the same with students and parents. And we realized that there was an opportunity here to basically add more efficiency and to the market overall, and make the experience much more enjoyable. Because as you know, the students today are growing up as digital natives. They expect to do everything online. And the volume of spreadsheets kind of wasn't really serving their needs. I think Kate has a question. Oh, you're muted, Kate.
I can wait till Drew is done with his
No,
question.
I think there's a number of questions in the chat. So Kate, if you want to go, and then I can start pulling up the questions in the chat.
Okay, so I know you showed us the things that it will do. Can you go backwards a little bit and explain, like, were we to get this, what would it look like when we logged on? What would it look like for a kid when they logged on? I'm trying to figure out how to lower my hand. I have no idea how to do that there. I saw what you had before, like, but what does it look like? And let's say we're using something like College Planner Pro or Counsel More. How would we integrate those, or is the suggestion not to use those things? I'm just not quite sure where this fits in.
Great question.
Daniel,
yeah.
Sorry, just to add on a couple of things. Laurie asked a similar question in the chat. How is this different from College Planner Pro and other existing services? And then Beverly and Garma had a question, which I think falls into this bracket. So Beverly says, it looks like the Collegeease logo is on the Google Docs, dashboards, and text to students. Would that remain if my company adopts this product, or does my company's logo replace yours? And Garma says, is there white labeling or domain masking?
Okay. So a lot of different questions. I'll address the last one.
I'm just going to add one more, which is that if you're a member of the IECA, I would strongly urge you not to pass on a cost to a client or family and make a profit, because that is a violation of our practices of good practice standards, whatever it is, and you don't want to do that.
Okay.
IECA members.
Fair point. So let me address one of the questions initially, which was, what is the experience like? These are static slides, so it's hard to kind of portray that. This roadmap here is what the student experience is, one of the many screens in the system. The And let me address the kind of the competitive questions as well in addressing what the service is. So CPP can be thought of as a CRM system, a customer relationship management system with a lot of the billing information and the ability to do kind of messaging through the system. It's not really a replacement for that. The need that we saw in the market was that this process, the college application process, was overwhelming for students. And so we built the system from the student out, as opposed to something like a CPP that builds from the IEC to the student. So they're complementary. The environment that you have is around the student. So you select a student profile and you see the entirety of the student's instance. You see their roadmap. On this tab, you would see their college lists and their requirements. So that's a fundamental difference. You can think of it absolutely as a replacement for Council More. Council More is kind of I would call it like a 1990s type interface, and not terribly student-centric and not terribly easy to navigate. Collegeease is dead simple to navigate, very easy to understand. And the whole point is kind of twofold, to give IECs leverage and to make sure that students progress in the process with all the different details of the college application process to increase their chances of success. So I don't know if those answer the questions, those initial questions. There were other questions about logo and private labeling. So that is under development. So a future release we will have where we will allow you, if you have a logo for your IEC practice, will allow you to swap that into the interface. Were there other questions that I didn't answer that were asked about those subjects, or we can move on to other questions?
Sorry, I think that covers the questions we asked. Kate had a follow-up, which is, does this integrate with CPP, or would it require counselors to put the college list in two places, both CPP and then also Collegeease?
Yeah, great question. We don't have an integration at this point. So to the degree that you would use CPP for your college list, you would have it in two places. We would recommend that you use the college list in Collegeease for a whole host of reasons. It's very simple. It covers the assessment all the way to recommendations, all the way to the essays. So everything's in one place, captured in one place, and very easy to navigate.
Great, thank you. Bruce had a question earlier about the timeline, and there was another follow-up question there as well. So Bruce asks, how does the system create the timeline the student needs to follow to stay on track and then send appropriate alerts? Is that something we need to input? Also, how does the system track the essays that are required for special programs like honors, etc., and know how to include or not include them? Beverly asked a similar question, which is, since each student has different interests and needs, does the timeline differ per student? And Garma asks, does this follow the Common App template? How about applications like MIT that are different?
Okay, so let's talk about timelines. So there's a best practice and a customization, personalization dimension to the timeline and the tasks. So the system has embedded in it best practices for when are the right times to start each of the tasks. As an example, we would probably all agree that the wrong time for a student to approach a teacher for letters of recommendation is in the fall of their senior year, and probably the right time is the spring of their junior year. For each of these type tasks, those timeframes are coded in the system for best practices. Then we layer on the initial survey, the onboarding survey, where we ask the student questions like when they're graduating, so we know if they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And we ask them questions about extracurriculars. And as an example, if they are involved in sports and they plan on doing D1 sports, tasks are created in the background with respect to when to get your NCAA ID and when to go to ID camps for sports, etc. Or if they need an IEP and they plan on pursuing that in college, appropriate tasks are created in the system as well. So the tasks are highly customizable to the student based on that onboarding, and they can customize that later if they want to. And they're also determined timeline based on best practices. Finally, as students add colleges to their list, we apportion those tasks according to the due dates of their applications. So for instance, and it'd probably be, apologize for not having the application on screen here, but you can select that you're going to ED at a particular school, and the due date for that application then creates a series of tasks in the background, and they're ordered according to the timing of when those applications are due. So the essays are front loaded in the process of all the different supplemental essays. The ones for the ED schools are put in front of the ones for the schools that are regular decision, et cetera. So there are a lot of dynamic elements to figuring out the ideal timeline so that the student is not overwhelmed, and so they're completing tasks in the optimal time frame for success. Questions about the essays. We pull down all of the essays that are supplemental for schools, so required and optional. And we provide information about that essay in the essay prompt. So if it's from an honors college, we'll mention in the essay prompt that it's from the honors college.
Got it. So let's stay on the topic of the essays and kind of the college suggestions and things like that. There's a couple of questions there. So Marcella asks, sorry, I'm just pulling up the question. Where is the AI model getting the info on less popular or competitive majors? The suggestion for film seemed misguided for the example student. So maybe we could go back to that and talk through that.
Yeah, so the example is completely out of context because we don't know the questions and answers that the student gave for this. So
but to add some context, like film is a very competitive major.
Yeah.
So that it just doesn't feel very informed by the industry.
Fair point. But so yeah, I mean the point being here that the AI asks a series of interactive questions, and so the answers that each student gets are very different. And if this student had indicated that they were aspiring to go into film, the answers probably would have been quite different.
But could you go back to that page for me? Doesn't it say that those are like more strategic majors, less popular majors? And so my concern here is the suggestion, see, yeah, less competitive majors offered by colleges. It may be easier to get accepted. Remaining majors, like, I think that what you're conveying here is that this is a strategy based on data, and it's actually not data informed here. Mm-hmm. And my concern as well with your, like, this is a bespoke process tailored to the individual student, is actually that it's not bespoke. Mm-hmm. Is it really data informed? Maybe you could pitch that to us. I'd love to hear if it is, but it just feels like it's an AI model getting any information off of online and selling it to kind of gullible students.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your observations. And I will say that there's no substitute for your industry expertise and your knowledge, which is part of the huge value add of being a consultant using a piece of software, is you adding in the layer of your expertise.
I'm also a U Chicago alumna, so I appreciate your background here. But is any of this AI informed by admissions data? Like, have you been consulting with other admissions officers in these suggestions?
We don't consult with admissions officers on the development of our system.
So I have a background in admissions, and I just feel like there were a lot of pitches here that were really concerning to me as not data informed.
Okay. I mean, you're certainly entitled to your perspective. What we're trying to do is improve the process for everyone. And we've pulled together best practices from about 35 different industry experts on every dimension that you can see here in terms of the different subjects. And there's always opportunity for improvement. We welcome feedback as we're continuously improving the system.
There is a follow-up question on the AI piece from Neha, who asks, does this include AI editing for essays similar to Athena AI?
We do not. We do not author essays, and our software does not author essays for the student. We also don't believe in relying on AI to author the essays, because what we've heard in droves from admissions officers is that they want to hear from the authentic student. And we all know that many students are relying on ChatGPT and its competitors these days. And we think that the more authentic voice of the student is much more valuable than having refined text from an AI. So we're not in support of that.
So the use of AI is more for the like college exploration, major exploration activities list, but not for the essays. Is that right?
That is correct.
Got it. Neha had a follow-up question there. Is this the kind of AI interface that we saw, is that a ChatGPT wrapper or a custom GPT, and where the data is coming from for that?
For which? I'm sorry, the data for which?
For the kind of things we were discussing around exploration of potential majors and activities and so on, the kind of the LLM interface that students were interacting with. Is that a wrapper on ChatGPT, or is that a custom GPT? I think that was the question there. Feel free to unmute if you...
It's a custom GPT, but we tend to not get into discussion of specific tools that we're using in a public forum, given that this is going to be publicly shared.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just unmute real quick. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. The reason why I was asking was just trying to understand where the data comes from. I know that you had mentioned that for the essays, of course, totally in agreement about authenticity for voice of writing. I think all of us IECs agree with that. I know I've been talking heavily with AJ from Athena about how he was able to get his AI model to be refined, which was being able to collect over, I think it was 4,000 essays in order to really build something robust. And so he actually was more than happy to be transparent about how that was built in order for us to trust using their software. In this case, where I'm curious and trying to understand is, and also when you were talking with, I think, Marcella about the majors, and it said mathematics is not competitive. That's actually incorrect information. So I think that's where a few of us are a bit concerned, right? Like we wouldn't want to give data that's incorrect. And then the second part is on the Athena AI, just to share, it does not write the essays. It's just helpful in the essay process. I think a lot of us feel that where IECs spend a majority of their time, because colleges have decided to add more and more prompts, is that essay process, right? So I'm curious if, one, is that going to be a feature you're going to be looking into? And then two, I would like a little bit more detail on how this custom GPT has collected its data to ensure that we're really assisting the student with the right information. Because my family is, just to give you a sense, a lot of them didn't go to college here. And so whatever we say, they take it as like fact. And so I just don't want to do anything that not only breaks our brand, but also breaks the trust.
Trust, absolutely. Yeah, excellent points. And I appreciate that, Neha. Ways that we're anticipating using AI in the future is in evaluating essays, but certainly not in writing and authoring any kind of content, but using it as an aid to provide more leverage to the IEC as well as the student. And I will say that the two examples where we're using AI of recommended less popular majors and recommended extracurriculars is probably 3%, 2% of the product. So I just honed in on like one. I mentioned there are a bunch of tasks behind the scenes. You click on any of these areas, and there are these tasks with the overview video and then an explanation of what to do. So those are just simply two tasks of many where we happen to be using AI as a means to assist the student in that exploration. We heard over and over again that students coming out of high school have no idea what the world of majors are out there. And this is an assistive process where we ask them a series of questions so they start reflecting on where they're strong, what others have told them they're good at, and where their passions are. So it's as much of an exploration as that college selection process in terms of understanding who they are and what their drivers are.
Thanks so much, Daniel. And I know since AI is such a hot topic and it's debated that captures attention. So maybe one thing that we could do is when we send the recording out, if you had a few lines around kind of how you think about incorporating AI into this, where you're planning to use it, where you're not planning to use it, we can include that in the note that we send out with the recording as well. Okay. Scott, you had a question about the college exploration. Do you want to ask it? I can read it out as well. I see you there.
Oh, yeah, you were mentioning about the students being able to look at the schools and kind of get to know how they're a good match for it. Is there school profiles on here, or is it just those things that the student checks and it makes a match without the student actually being able to see more about the school? Like, is it a blind matchup, or are they actually seeing like videos and tours and all that stuff?
Yeah, they can see all that. I'm going to see if I can't just bring another window over here and see if I can just show it to you. So you'll see the ratings and everything.
Awesome.
So let's see. I'm doing this on the fly, so
yeah.
So forgive me if it doesn't work. Can you see this on the screen?
Mm-hmm. We can see the counselor dashboard with Mary Jones, Jose Cordillo.
Okay, so we're actually in the application here. So this student has indicated they've gone through that the college selection process where they've indicated what's important to them. They've rank ordered the items. These are the schools that they have on their list, and you can see how the schools rank against the different criteria. If there are items that we haven't covered, you can add columns in for your own criteria, or the student can do that. And we've aspired to capture kind of every item that might be relevant to the college selection process, down to, you know, quality of food and lodging and all that.
Kate, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so I'm trying to make my hand go down. So yeah, I am sort of echoing I'm not going to repeat them all, but everything that Marcella, et cetera, have said remain concerns to me. And I don't feel like a place where I don't think most IECs feel like a place where we're struggling is to get kids to do that kind of major exploration and list building. So the only thing that I've seen so far, and again, it's hard because it wasn't a live demo, as you say, it's static pictures, is that text messaging thing to remind the kids to do things. That's a drag. I mean, I pay my virtual assistant to do those things, and that costs money. So if there were a way of, and I don't know that they listen to her anyhow, right? But is there a way of using that feature as a standalone feature if we didn't want all this other stuff where we're concerned about A, the data, and B, we don't feel that that's a pain point for us? Or is it come one, come all?
It's pretty much you get everything together, but you don't have to use any of it. You can kind of choose what you use. So
yeah, but you're paying $25 or I guess $15 a month per kid. So, you know, that's $150 a month or $300 a month, whatever your caseload is, to text message them. That's got to be, I'm sure I don't pay the virtual assistant that much.
Yeah.
So is that something you're thinking about?
We don't offer functionality a la carte.
Okay.
Yeah, to answer your specific question. And I wanted to
think about that, because I think that there's that I think you might find is no one else is offering that function that I'm aware of. I mean, you know, CPP will send reminders, but they'll ignore them. This is a nice feature. You might think about whether that's where, you know, you want to kind of put your, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I didn't go to University of Chicago Law School. I only went to Columbia, business school. I only went to Columbia Law School. But from a legal point of view, I'm concerned about the AI and the privacy and all that kind of stuff. But for the text messaging stuff, that's cool. And apparently somebody else agreed with me. So that's just my opinion.
Okay.
And I think the text message is echoed by Stephen as well. He finds that one of the most time-consuming parts of the process is the repeated reminders. Is it possible to automate such that the text go out until the student physically checks a box indicating that a particular task has been completed? or does it stop when the system recognizes that the task has been completed? I think I'm curious about the texting approach a bit more.
Yeah, so we don't want to bombard the students. So we send a single message out for each task that they need to complete. And those that they also have reminders up here as to what's due and what their action is. And they'll also receive emails, but we don't bombard them with the same task over and over and over again. But there is a reckoning, if you will, like the student can see their progress. I'll show you what this is what the student sees in their dashboard. They can see what they've done, where they've made progress. They can see what's overdue. They can click this and they can see, this is not a real student, but this particular student has all these items that are overdue. So it's all in one place.
Daniel, does the student need to physically check a box to indicate that they've completed a task, or do you have functionality where there's some integration? I saw that there was a link to a Google Doc, for example. If they start working on it, that there's some indication on the platform that at least the student has started it.
Yeah, so the student, I'm looking at this from a consultant's view, so I won't have this, but you'll have to use your imagination. At the bottom of this task, there are two buttons for the student. One says mark complete and one says skip. So the advantage of a skip is that we don't presuppose that a student has to do everything, and so they can skip out of things. But when they mark it complete, that's recorded in the system. And similarly for your essays, here, each essay has these right here where they can indicate if they're on draft, or they can indicate if the essay is done.
Okay, so great. I appreciate it.
Track of it. Yep.
Great. There's a couple of questions, Daniel, about outcomes so far and the students in IECs you work with. So Nagla asks, how many actual IEC businesses are currently using the platform with paying clients, and are any of them public about it? And then Jess asks, can you share any data you have on how this tool helps to increase acceptance rates by 40%, and compared to what? What data are you using to make that determination? How many admission cycles has this product been in operation?
Yeah, one admission cycle. We're in the middle of it right now. And we did not claim that we improve acceptance rates by 40%. We talked about the ability to take on 40% more students because of the time savings in using the system. Regarding specific clients, IECs or families for that matter, we don't make that information public, but we do obviously have IECs using the system. And I'm happy.
But on your web, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. On your web, I don't mean to be picky, and Drew knows I'm usually not picky, but I'm just sort of perplexed. But on the website, there was something like 98%. I pulled up your website. It said, what was that, 98%?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah. That's because during our beta period, which was last year, we tracked the progress of the families that were using the system. And we tracked their performance for the colleges that they applied to within our system, and track their
They had a 98% admit rate to the colleges they applied to.
For the colleges they applied to on their target list. So not their reach schools, but their target schools.
Okay, but again, that would go back to Jess's question. So compared to what? I mean, that may be true. Oh, whatever. Okay.
No, I think the question is really valid, especially because on your website, you say skyrocket your students' college acceptances. And again, it's going back to this idea, bullet point number 3, uses AI to pinpoint which extracurriculars and majors will give each student an advantage. And we're seeing that your data, well, there isn't data driving those decisions for majors. And then if we are taking this on as a component of our businesses, then we're either A, saying, I trust this, I believe in this is correct. Or we're saying disregard that information, in which case, why are we selling this to our clients at all?
So I would hesitate to make a broad statement about information being my service overall. The issue you brought up was with majors, and as I mentioned—
But you do. And Daniel, I don't need to be rude, but you're trying to sell to our industry, and you're not taking into consideration actual data from our industry. So your website is saying that it shows students how to write unforgettable essays that stand out, but you haven't talked to admissions officers, so you don't know what essays stand out. And then you're saying that you use AI to pinpoint which extracurriculars and majors will give each student an advantage, but you haven't talked to admissions officers, so you don't know what majors will give a student an advantage.
Well, he did say he talked to admissions officers and something else too, so it's a little confusing.
Yeah, when you asked specifically about admissions officers informing our AI, no, we didn't do that. There are 1,000 books on the admissions process out there, and it's very clear what the methodologies are to writing outstanding essays. That's not a mystery. And speaking to a simple admissions officer or two is not going to give you the secret. You all know, you're in this industry. You know that the secret is finding that student's authentic voice, tying it to real things in their experience and their background, and providing some guidance as to what that looks like in the future. And that looks very different for every student. And what we do is we take the best practices here for the personal statement as an example, and we break it down bit by bit. We have a variety of brainstorm exercises for reflections on their life. We pick the right story that is vibrant and has potential, match it against the prompt. And then we have them go through a series of exercises that find that do best practices from show, don't tell, don't talk about a third party, talk about yourself, have a compelling opening, hook, and conclusion, etc. These are all best practices. You can choose. Your choice is to continue doing the way you've serviced your students. I'm simply sharing a way that IECs are doing it in a much more efficient and effective manner today. It's obviously your decision as to whether or not you think that it's more effective. I apologize for that we went down the rat hole on applying AI for the choosing of majors. You can choose to ignore that functionality. I wanted to just show you that that is just one of many, many different features in the system. So under classes and majors, this is where we would have choose your major. That's one out of many different tasks that we have in the system. And there's all focused on improving a student's outcomes.
Thanks so much, Daniel. There's a few different questions in the chat, but I think they're a little in different places. And so I'm wondering if there's a question that someone's asked that they feel hasn't been answered, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand. And I can call on you to ask.
Can I just go back to the opening thing that you said, Daniel, about you felt that there were places where your children did not get the result or the guidance that you were hoping for. So I'm assuming that whoever you hired, since you interviewed the very best, they did get that guidance around. I don't even believe that you should pay attention to majors, to be perfectly honest. I think you should all go to a college undeclared, decide what you want to do, and then figure it out, and then go do something else for grad school if you need to. But let's just suppose that that's not the philosophy. I assume that your kids got some guidance on intellectual curiosity, what piques their interests. Then they presumably got some guidance around how to write those authentic essays that expressed who they were. So where was the whole, Dhruva's original origin story? I thought it was around them not having the task management. Am I wrong?
So more important than my experience is what I heard from approximately 40 to 50 different parents that I interviewed and their students, which is they lack clarity on the big picture. They lack a clear project plan and timeline. They don't know when certain things are meant to be completed. They need assistance in between sessions, and their IEC are not able to
what
meet
does
with
that
them.
mean, that they needed assistance in between sessions? Because
Meaning that the IEC is not able to meet with them every time that they have a question and need assistance, that they have set times when they're engaging, when they have their Zoom calls. But
Okay.
I mean, obviously, these are generalized statements that parents shared with me generally about different IECs that they've worked with. Or if they haven't even worked with IECs, just the college process in general. Yeah, ultimately, the question for each of you is to say, do you think that a tool like this can give you a lot of leverage, i.e., reduce the amount of busy work and allow you to spend more quality time with your students and less time on the drudgery? And if you're business minded, does a tool like this give you leverage so that you can take on more students and support more students? You know, those ultimately are kind of the questions that you have to ask for yourselves. And obviously, you also have to ask, do you think that this is a credible service or not, as some of the people brought up?
I think it would save an enormous amount of time, Daniel, especially with the repeated messaging. If there's any way to add that functionality, I know you don't want to bombard or overwhelm, but we're kind of in an industry and working with an age group where sometimes they need to be bombarded and overwhelmed, especially in the technology age where they are bombarded and overwhelmed by so many other things that are distracting them. I send on average between 5 and 10 text messages, I would say a week to some of my students, and they love it. And that's an enormous amount of time that I think maybe repeated SMS text messaging might actually help.
Okay. And are those text messages around a common theme, or are they all across the board?
The common theme would be to complete the task that I have outlined. And you can send an email to the parents, send a spreadsheet and share it via Google Sheets with the parents and say, okay, this is the timeline, this is the calendar, this is when I want things completed by. But I built my business on constant reminders, unfortunately. And we'd like to get away from that as much as possible. I think that's one thing. But I agree with you. I think in between sessions, I get a lot of questions about essay themes. Does this look good? And these are not within the confines of a session. So I find myself, my evenings, I mean, thank God I don't have any kids and I'm not married, because it's a good 4 to 5 hours a night of just, especially when we're in the heat of things in the fall, trying to respond to, what I thought about a particular theme or a particular essay or an approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that from many people, actually.
Fabulous. I know we have about 5 minutes left. I was curious if you had anything else that you wanted to check in with these IECs about, or anything that you want to leave us with, or if there are any final questions that people want to unmute themselves and ask.
I'd say, just kind of in summary, if there are no other questions, if you take one thing away, I want you to realize that you don't have to have, as Stephen mentioned, kind of the midnight email nags or be that spreadsheet warrior. You can offload a lot of the busy work and focus more on the things that you love doing with the students. And this system is designed to be super flexible. You can skip any task, including the recommendation of a major. You don't have to use the 2 places where we're using AI to recommend majors and recommend extracurriculars, or you can have the student do that and override the results. This is just meant to be an aid to complement what you're already doing. Our general focus is to bring greater efficiency and clarity to what is an unnecessarily complex process, which is applying to colleges. And if it wasn't that complex, you all wouldn't be in jobs, nor would I. But there is opportunity to make it to eliminate the drudgery and make it a more enjoyable process for all parties, for the student, for the parent, and for you, the IEC. And that was really the origin of Collegeease, is to simplify that process so that you as a consultant can enjoy what you're doing and actually add more students and give them more support in the things that you presumably love to do. So thank you all very much for your time today. I appreciate that. I also appreciate the candid questions, and whether they be hardball or not, AI is still an emerging space, and we're all learning and we're all trying to get better at it. So appreciate your patience. And I should also mention, just as an ending here on this slide, If you have any questions, send an email to support@collegeease.com. I am more than happy to do one-on-one sessions with any IEC and provide you with a custom demo, answer questions more revealing than what I was able to give on a public forum like this, because this will be posted publicly. We're here to make you more successful as well as your students. So we appreciate
Well,
your
I would like to just add, and maybe you'll cut this out in the end. I didn't come in here to attack. I didn't know anything about your business before, but I just would not recommend this service to anybody who's on the call or listening to the call. And if you would like to reach out to me, I don't make I don't make any money offering any other softwares to any other folks, so I don't get a kickback in any other way. But I'm more than happy to give you some advice on some better data-driven services that you could use.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, all of you, for attending, as well as the thoughtful questions. There's a number of suggestions, Daniel, in the chat as well for other tools you can incorporate. So I'll download a copy of the chat as well and send it over to you so that you can answer any questions that, I think I've saved the chat so that you can answer any questions that weren't in there. There's also a couple of other tools like Works, WRX, as well as Automator using AI that I think there are ways that you could think about potentially incorporating. But at the very least, this was an invigorating discussion. I think the platform has a lot of potential depending on the features that people are excited by. Thank you again for making the time, and looking forward to meeting you all again, hopefully in person sometime soon or on one of these webinars. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Let me just stop recording.